Welcome to the Team FNC podcast. Today I'm joined by Amanda Marxen from Astrophysiques. And today's episode is really for the parents out there, parents, soon to be parents, or want to be parents. And we're going to be talking specifically about the challenges that parents face when it comes to their nutrition, their training, and their lifestyle habits when they become a parent, or even if they're a parent and they start to have some goals that they want to work towards as well. And then we'll also kind of go through a couple of tips for the parents out there as well. But before we get into those, Amanda, do you want to introduce yourself? Firstly, your family, your children, and then we'll talk about what you do
Yeah,
because that's the order of importance.
yeah, of course. So I've been working in the health and fitness industry for the last, must be getting close to 8 years now, I would say. So I started off just as a personal trainer and then I did my nutrition qualifications. And then once I became pregnant and started stepping into that mum space, then I upskilled in working with pregnancy women and coaching postpartum, which started off just for myself, but then obviously I started to attract those sorts of clients. So then I could flow that through to my clients. I have two beautiful girls. I've got Calliope or Callie. She is coming up to 2.5. And then I have Chili, who will be 7 months in about a week. It gets a lot harder to keep track of the age of the second one, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's been a ride. Yeah, getting back into things because I obviously was competing and doing all of those sorts of very ambitious comp prep goals prior to having kids, and I do plan on getting back to that. But you definitely do have a solid adjustment period in between where you really have to. For me, anyway, I had to sort of change my priorities a little bit to be able to make everything still work.
Yeah. So what personally were some of the main challenges that you faced after having your first child, Calliope, and then kind of getting back into the swing of things with your nutrition and training?
So for me, when I was pregnant with Callie, I definitely had this don't care how much weight I gain because once I have this child, I'm going to have so much time to be able to exercise and do everything after because I'll be on, maternity leave. So I'll have all of this time. And that was really incorrect. I had no idea what it was going to be like, I guess, to adjust. For me, it was a really hard adjustment period having a child. I found it really challenging losing so much about my identity, I suppose. Not just physically, because I got to, as someone that, that had competed before, and then my heaviest I got to with Callie was about 106 kilos. So you don't really recognize your body. You kind of feel like you've lost that. And then, suddenly you're at home with this little baby that takes up all of your time. So it was a huge adjustment. And to be honest, exercising was not even on my radar initially. It was just trying to get through the day, establish, breastfeeding routine, sleep routine. Like that was my priority as opposed to, I guess, getting back into shape. So, you've also got the 6 weeks before you can go and get your physio clearance. So any mums listening to that, please do that before you return to exercise. Please go and see a female health physio and get your pelvic floor and abdominals checked first. But even after that, it took me probably 3 months before I started going on just walks and started integrating those little bits back. I think mum guilt comes into that a little bit too, especially, as a first time mum. I definitely don't really have that now, but initially taking time for myself, I felt guilty and I shouldn't because, I'm a huge advocate for all of my clients that you're your best you when you're pouring from a full cup and doing things to try and keep that cup full. But it was something that I, had to learn to, what is it? Like practice what you preach, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess being able to lean on your partner, which I'm very lucky that I can. Tommy's a very hands-on dad, and he was very supportive in giving me time to be able to, exercise and train because he knew that was something that was really important for, not just my physical health, but my mental health, which is especially important postpartum. I can't even imagine how hard that would be for a single parent to try and juggle that happening when, you're doing both roles. That would be so much harder. But yeah, I think the mum guilt. And then I guess when it's just you and, you can just have that, prioritization mindset, right? Where it's just, if you want it bad enough, you just make it happen. If you have to make sacrifices, they your sacrifices. Whereas once you've got little people, you can't really sacrifice them. So if they're sick, if they need to feed, if they need you, you can't really just prioritize, and that challenge.
Yeah, exactly. What you just said there, you hit the nail on the head. It's not about wanting it bad enough. Like there are
Mm,
other factors into play, like your circumstances are so important. One of the things I use with coaching is what we call the golden behavior criteria. So focusing on what you can do, what you want to do, and what will have a positive impact on your life.
mm,
But the can do is so important, like your time,
yeah,
your circumstances, your commitments to your family. Like you, and especially like with, I think about like a mums and bubs class with a gym class, right? 9:30. But a lot of babies are going down for their first nap at that time.
yeah,
So it's not that easy to just go, oh, I'm going to go and do the mums and bubs class when you're trying to
yeah.
get your baby into a sleep routine as well. I think I think it's really important for the people that they listen to this, knowing that you are a health and fitness professional, and you went through these struggles yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
so it's like normalizing it, but going like even us as professionals do it. Like you said, mum guilt. I have dad guilt about going to the gym because if my wife doesn't get to go to the gym, I feel like bad that I'm going.
True.
You
Yeah.
know,
True.
I had dad guilt about going back to work, leaving my
Oh,
wife
that's
at
so
home.
interesting that you say that. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. That's so true. Yeah.
So just normalizing those things really helps. And like you said, like it took you time just to be able to go for a walk, like 3 months, I
Mm,
think you said. And it's like we know these things. We say these things to our clients, you know, fill your own cup up first, put your own oxygen mask on first. But it
mm.
is easier said than done. And that's probably been the one huge lesson that I have learned since having Inca is that it's all well and good to say those things. You know that these things, like you're a better parent when you do get to go to the gym or you do get to exercise or you do look after yourself. But in the moment, it is not that easy.
Oh, it's no, it's definitely not. It's definitely not.
And then for you, I guess, you know, your identity, like part of who you are was exercising.
Hmm.
And it's almost like grieving that that part of you isn't there anymore. But I guess in
Yeah.
saying that, that also helps with the motivation side of things, because if we think about motivation on a spectrum, you know, you identify probably as someone who is healthy, who likes to eat well, who likes to exercise. So it wasn't really a motivation problem. I guess correct me if I'm wrong. But it just means like you want to do something, but it's just you just can't do it, and that can be quite frustrating as well.
I think it's definitely was a benefit for me that I had very strong, like I've been in the gym since I was 15. So it is such a big part of my identity that I don't actually need motivation to train. I
Mm.
don't need motivation to eat well because frankly, being a mum, I don't have the energy for motivation. It's just not even there
Yeah,
at all. Like you're so tired and fatigued and doing 50 million things. I if I relied on motivation, I probably would never go. I'm just lucky in the sense that I built so many routines before I had kids that for me it's like waking up in the morning, making coffee, training. It's just part of something that I can just flip into, which I was honestly so grateful of when I was pregnant because I trained through all of my pregnancies and not only was it not motivating, I hated it. I did not feel like doing it. I resented every single session. And I was honestly a little bit afraid I was never going to enjoy training again. And then I'm this PT that doesn't enjoy training. And then, but yeah, I don't know. So that was probably 2 years. I think I kept training even though I actually hated it. And it's only now postpartum with Chili, I found that love again and I'm loving hitting the gym again. And I'm so relieved because, yeah, that was a little bit scared for a bit there that it just wasn't going to come back. But
yeah. Well, that would have been again going back to like your identity of someone who is a health
mm,
and fitness professional, going like, oh my god, if I can't enjoy exercising, how am I going to make a career out of this?
right. And I think a big part of that was being postpartum with Callie, knowing that I was going to have another child. And whilst logically, like, look, everything I do now, like, it's still gonna, set me up for success in the future. But in the other part of my head was, you're about to have another kid and you're going to undo all of this work. How motivated are you for these goals or keen for these results when you know that they're temporary and you don't even get to hold on to them? And I think that for me, I was like, oh, why even bother? Why not just wait until you're finished and then just start again then? But, there is just so many benefits in staying active through your pregnancy, if that's something that you're able to do. So, yeah.
So was that something that you reminded yourself of pretty consistently of
Consistently.
like, here is why I'm doing this?
Yeah, I'm doing it because it's going to make my pregnancy better, my labor better. And then when I am actually at the end of popping out children in my postpartum journey, my starting point will still be better than if I just don't even start again at all and wait. So
Yeah.
reminding myself of that, but it isn't the most motivating time I found for me to want to exercise,
Yeah.
particularly if you have children that seem allergic to sleep like mine. So yeah.
Yeah. I think that's an important thing, is to really get clear on your why, like why you're exercising in the first place. And, I'm going to say it probably changes for most people when they do have children. The reason why they exercise, the reason why they want to eat better, is going to change pretty dramatically when you become a parent.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, when I first had Calliope, I swore I'd never compete again because of a lot of the, I guess, diet and culture and habits and that you do when you're competing. You're weighing every gram of food, you're constantly weighing yourself. And having daughters, I was very conscious of how they could perceive those behaviors growing up when, females, I suppose everyone's very impressionable, but, for me, I watched my mum do some pretty extreme dieting through my childhood, and that definitely had a really negative effect on me. So I'm very conscious of things I do and say in front of my daughters because they're like little sponges. But I think I have decided that I am going to compete again, but it's going to hold me very accountable in how I go about doing it, because I prep my clients, with a health first approach. So it's going to really, hold me to the flame and making sure that I do the same thing for myself. So I've taken it as a challenge rather than, yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be
Whether we like it
interesting.
or not, our children are picking up on what we're doing.
Very
Yeah.
much so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've actually got this book one of my best buddies, Pat, gifted to me. It's like the Daily Stoic that Ryan Holiday has. He's got one for dads, like the Daily Dad. So there's one message every single day on
That's cool.
parenting. And I think it was last month or the month before. One of those was about like setting an example. And the two things that I always get back to is, one of them is like, what do you want your children to see? And I was like, and it was like in regards to your relationship with your partner, getting frustrated, looking after yourself. And I was like, fuck, that's really powerful. Like if I just keep going back, like, what do you want your children to see? And then the other one is like, it's a classic, CBT thing, is like, what would you say to your children if they were doing this or thinking this? And I was
Mm.
like, that's two pretty powerful questions to always come back to, when
Yeah.
it comes to your eating and your exercise and your lifestyle habits as well.
And especially as well with how you perceive yourself and, body image and that self talk. And I'm so conscious of that with not only me, but how the words that I use with them. And I've done that from a very young age. So an example would be, my girls have these delicious thick thighs. And I always refer to it as like their strong girl legs as opposed to, their fat thighs or whatever. Like just changing that language. And, we do lots of things at home where we talk about like how strong we are and, how healthy we are. And I got put in an actual interesting position the other day because my daughter wanted to have chocolate for breakfast. And I said, you can't have chocolate for breakfast. And she's like, why? And I was like, how do I explain to a 2-year-old why you can't actually eat chocolate for breakfast? Because like I'm not, you're avoiding being like, oh, because you don't want to demonize the food, but then how much is their understanding? But you want them to eat healthy. Oh, so it was like put on the spot, and I was like, oh my god, I hadn't actually really thought about how I was going to tackle these sorts of conversations with you just yet. So instead, I end up going like, oh, because we eat, these foods first because they fuel our body, so we've got lots of energy for the day. And then I was like, we're going to come back to that. We're going to think about this. But, you're just so conscious. And I feel like understanding more about nutrition almost in some ways can make it harder because my 2-year-old went from being a baby that ate everything to a toddler whose diet consists of chicken nuggets. She eats broccoli, which is great. We have broccoli in there, tomato sauce and mayonnaise. And I'm like, cool. So in my head, because I do know about macros, I'm in the back of my mind almost tracking what macros she's eating in a day, thinking like protein shit or whatever it may be. So it's almost been harder because I'm so aware when she is eating a poor diet on the things that she's missing.
Yeah. And there's an
Mm.
analysis by paralysis as well, of like you're just overthinking everything, you're overthinking your language. I
Yeah.
know there was I haven't got the book, but I believe it's like a children's book where it's now about it's targeted towards like young girls, and it's not just about like, oh, she looks cute. It's like she looks strong, she looks brave,
Mm.
she looks smart, she looks clever. Like,
Yeah.
and then taking the emphasis away from, looks.
Physical trait.
And
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
now with Inca's 8 months old. I'm trying to get out of the thing of like, oh, she's so cute. Like I'm trying to like
Mm.
actually describe, how she looks and why she makes me feel a certain way. Oh,
Yeah.
she's so vibrant, she's so funny, rather than just
Mm.
going based on her looks, because it can be so hard for a girl to be programmed from such a young age that they
Yeah.
are, their worth is
More than
based.
their looks.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we do the same thing, like affirmations, where it's like, I am kind, I am strong, I am funny, like those sorts of ones. And now, I've got a 2-year-old that runs around saying, Callie's the best. I'm like, cool, you don't like confidence? Great. But
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
yeah.
Going back to like what your child's eating and being really
Mm.
nervous about that as well. I think it's a really common thing when it comes to, parents. They want their child to, eat a really well balanced diet. And I get this question all the time. Oh, what will you do if, Inca doesn't really like eating healthy? I'm like, well, I didn't eat fruits or veggies or healthy until I was 25 years old.
Oh my
So,
God.
honestly, I
Uh,
ate like potato was my vegetable until I was 25, and then I changed pretty dramatically, and now my job is telling people how good vegetables are.
I mean, this is where I praise daycare. There's something about like the pack mentality. At daycare, they'll be like, oh, she ate all of her fruit and all of this. And I'm thinking, are you talking about my child? Are you sure? But when she's sitting down with all of the other kids, she just copies and she'll eat what they eat. So I'm like, great. At least, she's at daycare every second day. So I'm like, at least every second day you're getting a nutritious diet because you just seem to refuse it with me. Even though, we make sure, we're all sitting down together, we have dinner together, she's watching us eat all of the things. But with us, she's like, no, no, don't want it. I'm like, cool. So
Yeah,
yeah, daycare, great. Being around other kids that, they seem to copy each other. So I found that really helpful.
yeah. You don't want to be the loser that's not eating vegetables.
Right? Yeah.
That's so cool. And then going back to like, highlighting the positives, like you are still eating a meal together, sitting down. And
Yeah.
there's a thing called the eating competence framework that I'm really big on, as well. And one of those things speaks about like eating context and how like it doesn't matter if you're eating the most reprehensible meal, as long as you are sitting down and eating it together. Like that
Mm.
is a win. Like you could order takeaway, like you could have pizza, and as long as you are sitting at the table and having it together,
Mm.
that is better than like not eating at all, essentially.
Yeah. And
And
I do
then
find the key with them is to, they're better off eating something than nothing, is offering like a safe food. So whatever, nuggets, whatever it may be that they'll actually eat, and then offering the things you would like them to eat. Because
mm,
if you stop offering it, they're never going to eat it. So
yeah,
just continuously offering it, praying, hoping for the best, crossing your fingers, but at least worst case, they'll eat their like safe food. Um, so they're having something. Like something is better than nothing. But
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Without this being an episode based on how we feed our children, there's one more thing is when it comes to food exposure, it's usually that we give up within like 1 to 3 times. But she
Mm.
doesn't like cauliflower, but it's actually that they want to be exposed to the food like 10 to 20 times,
Mm.
rather than just like 1 to 3 times. So like just be a bit more like persistent, trying different ways.
Yeah.
But again, this one's not based on the children, but it's that like more about the parents. But that can be really challenging. Like you're trying to eat healthy, and then you got to prepare different meals for the kids and whatnot. So that can be another big challenge in itself.
Oh, I feel like the more effort you put into their meal, the less likely they are to eat it. So.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But again, like you said, eating something is better than nothing. Um,
Yeah.
I remember when I was back when I was a school teacher, there was a teacher's aide that was, kind of, you know, having a go at some of the kids based on what they were eating. They were eating, cereal, like just Cocoa Pops for breakfast. I'm like, fuck, at least they're eating something. This is a pretty low SES area, as well. I'm like, you're actually lucky that this kid's eating breakfast. Doesn't matter what they're eating.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. It's
So
funny how things change. Whereas I feel like, when I had my hypothetical children before I had my real ones, I was like, oh, like I'm going to do things like this and this is going to play out like this. And then I get the real children and I'm like, you don't respect my plan at all.
yeah, yeah, that's it. I'm certainly like I see those challenges ahead of me, and I'm I'm trying to follow some like fussy eating dietitian pages as well.
Mm,
So any parents out there facing these challenges, just look, yeah, for fussy children
mm,
dietitians. And they've got some really cool tips on how to like, introduce like banana. You start with like potato chip, then you go to like a banana chip, and then it like kind of progresses towards an actual banana. Same with
that's
like nut.
cool.
Same with nuts. Like you start with like a Reese's peanut butter cup, and then it turns into like just peanut butter. Then it turns into nuts, for example. So there's ways that you can progress.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Um, so other than like, so you said like you didn't have to rely on motivation, which is a really great thing.
No.
What about the parents out there that they really do struggle with motivation? One of the questions I had was, after a rough night, like I do actually get the chance to go to the gym, and I just can't be fucked.
So a game changer for me was managing my expectations of my session. So I am someone that usually, I've got to focus on progressive overload. I'm going in there, I've got my PB in mind, I'm trying to progress each week. If I've had a shit night's sleep and I like, it's not actually possible for me to achieve that. So if I'm going to be going in there with that in my mind, thinking like, oh, well, I'm not even going to be able to do that. Like, what's the point of me going? Or I do go, I think I'm going to hit it. I put all this pressure on myself. I don't. And then going and training wasn't actually a positive experience. I'm walking out frustrated. So there are some mornings where I just walk in and be like, well, this isn't going to be the best session, but I'm here. And that's enough for me. Um, Being able to do that, just showing up, being enough really shifted my mindset on going when I didn't feel like going.
Yeah. So reframing what a win is.
Yeah. A win is literally walking in the door. I mightn't even follow my program. If it was a really bad night, I'm like, do you know what? Am I going to do deadlifts at all? I'm not. I'm not going to do them because dropping the weight back that much is probably just going to make me sad. So I'm just going to go hit some of my favorite exercises. I'm moving. That's enough for today. So how I guess I sort of do that with my clients is I have some contingency workouts for a lot of my mums. So, there's a fair few of my mums that, they go train at the gym, but if shit hits the fan at home, they can't get there. So we've got I call them like plan B backup, and that'll be like a home session. It might be 30 minutes circa that they can just sort of do when their kid has a sleep. It's not their actual program, but it's better than nothing. And they've still done that, achieved that, and it's manageable for them to do. So having, those backup plans seems to really help.
Yeah, awesome. That's one thing I really like about CrossFit as well, is that you can go in and scale a workout, depending
Yeah,
on
right.
how you feel that day as well.
Yeah.
And most good CrossFit gyms have the scaling options on the board that you can choose from, based on where you're at overall, but even like where you're at based on that day as well.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Just yeah. Sometimes it's just not gonna happen. Like it's easy to, I shouldn't say it's easy, it's still hard, but it is easy to progress. And really when your nutrition's on point, your sleep's on point, your hydration's on point, all of those things get disrupted. When you're postpartum, nothing is actually set up in your favor for you to be able to effectively lose weight, other than if you're breastfeeding the extra calorie burn, but then you've got the hunger to go with it. So I don't know. It's when most women are most wanting to lose weight, but your environmental factors, pretty much all of them are working against you. So it
Yeah.
can be a really challenging time.
Yeah, you really are climbing uphill. That's why, like, again,
Yeah.
you're going back to like go based on like again, it's like almost like the golden behavior criteria is like, what can you do today? What do you
Yeah.
want to do today? So that's gonna like, if you want to do it, you're actually more likely to do it.
Yeah.
And then what's going to progress me towards, again, what's most important. So you
Mm,
might have a goal, but what does that goal actually mean to you? And if you can get
yeah.
that deeper why, like, this goal is, I want to just get back into the routine of exercising. Great,
Mm,
cool. That's more vague, but also it's like, there's more ways you can achieve that goal as well.
yeah.
Like just basically just getting into the gym, or you want to just get moving again, you know?
Yeah.
So rather than training, it's exercising. Rather than exercise, it's moving.
Yeah. Yeah. So like a lot of, I have a lot of very enthusiastic mums that, want to jump in and sign up when I'm like, how many weeks postpartum are you? And they're like, oh, 2 weeks. I'm like, no, like take time, recover first. I'm still here, but once we do get started, you mightn't even be hitting the gym. We might be starting with just going on some walks with you, pushing the pram, depending on how you're feeling. Because if you weren't training beforehand, every pregnancy is different. Every labor is different. Every postpartum is different, even for the same person. So postpartum Callie and postpartum Chili, completely different. With Callie, I felt like a Mack truck had run over my entire body and then reversed back over me for weeks. With Chili, I felt like after 48 hours, I honestly could have gone and trained.
Wow.
Like, yeah. And it wasn't anything that I did or didn't do. I trained during both my pregnancies, two, vaginal labors, but yet my body, it was just so different. And it's, to me, I'm a big advocate that is a really important time to listen to your body. And if it's telling you to rest, when you will know when your body is ready to actually start implementing those trainings again. But don't put that pressure on yourself, particularly for new mums. Give yourself a minute. Just give yourself a minute to mentally adjust. Training is always going to be there. Fat loss and weight loss, it's always going to be there. Let yourself get so that you're ready first.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, you have the rest of your life to exercise.
You do.
This postpartum window is a small drop in the ocean, especially if you are someone who beforehand identified as an exerciser. It was part of your life. Like, it will be part of your life again, but you don't get this time back. And also,
exactly.
if you rush it, then you'll have longer out.
Yeah.
If you kind of do something that's a little bit silly, then you could have 6 months off the gym, right?
Or, you just need to Google like a prolapse, and that's enough to scare you a little bit to just let things recover, get everything checked out, do things properly, be patient, because I know, you can be impatient because you want your old body back. You want to feel good again. Like I remember looking in the mirror postpartum and just, it wasn't even just how I looked. It was how my body felt. Everything felt different. And it felt like someone had just taken my brain and just put me in a completely different body. I recognized absolutely nothing about it. And I remember thinking I wonder if this body will ever feel like me again. And it does. But at the time, you don't know how you're going to feel or if you're going to feel like you again.
Yeah, that's pretty scary. You kind of sometimes grieving your past self.
Yeah.
When you could go to the gym whenever you wanted to, you were pretty free. You could lift a certain way. Again, just no responsibilities. You're almost grieving that part of you.
Exactly.
And that body as well.
I never got a stretch mark during puberty. I remember being my body doesn't actually get stretch marks. And then Callie showed me how wrong I was. I woke up one day and I was just covered, absolutely covered when I was pregnant with her. And I was like, wow, okay, my body does get stretch marks. And that can be an adjustment for a lot of people. Some people really feel insecure and dislike stretch marks. I suppose for me, I actually think when they fade out and they're all silver, I think they actually look really pretty. It's very similar to sort of the tattoo designs that I get. So to me, I'm like, nature's tattoo, cool, great, it sparkles, I don't mind. But for some people, that's a big change. That can make people quite insecure.
Yeah. We mentioned before, reframing, could there be a reframe where you go, okay, it's a stretch mark, but it's a symbol of my child.
Oh, it did. My body's done something cool. And that's why I hate the term bouncing back. I hate it because it's this idea that, you're going to get your body back to what it was before, but your body's done something that your old body's never done. Everything, it's different. So I like to think of it more as a bouncing forwards or a 2.0 version, because this new body, it made people. That's incredible. So expecting it to look and do things, the same things that, a body that hasn't made people has done, that's not very realistic. And that's, putting those sorts of expectations on yourself. So, your 2.0 version, sure, might have stretch marks, but it's about to, start eating healthy or training with all of the responsibilities of being a parent. That's an achievement, because everyone that's a parent that's started doing that, they know exactly how hard it is. So it's a big sense of accomplishment.
Yeah. And that, I guess we can kind of then go into the comparison trap that people can fall into. But one thing I try and get my clients to do is always measure backwards. So rather than measuring themselves based on where you are now and the ideal that you have in your mind, always measuring backwards. But that can be a trap for someone who might be a parent. They're measuring themselves backwards against the old body or what they used to be able to lift or what they used to be able to do. But I like this reframe of like a 2.0. So now you're measuring back to your 2.0. This is a new checkpoint. You're not measuring yourself against your 25-year-old self or your 17-year-old self or these pants that you wore in high school. It's like, since you became a mum and you started getting back into nutrition and training, this is your new measure of progress. Everything you do beyond here, you just go back to here. Not when you could deadlift 150 kilos, right? Not when you could do, 5 strict chin-ups or whatever it is. Like, don't worry about that anymore. Like, you have a new set point.
Especially with strength training. So for me at the moment, like I'm working on my deadlift. I'm working on doing a PB. It's not really a PB because it's still a good 50 kilos off what I did pre. But for me, postpartum, it's my postpartum PB. And, having those expectations, on your new body, sort of starting again. I like the whole, new checkpoint. I think that's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, the PPPB.
Yeah. Yep. That's it.
And I guess with social media, right, comparative narrative, people fall into all the time. But do you find that's a really big one for mums as well? They might compare themselves to people that haven't had children or other mums that have had children that get into training and nutrition straight away.
I think there's so many parts of that. Because, on, one side, yes, there's a lot of mums that, might compare themselves to mums that have, had children and then their bodies have, they've responded very well. And then suddenly, like they've had their kid and they don't even look like they've had a kid. They look exactly how they did before. And you've got all these mums being like, why don't I? Like, why didn't my body do that? Like, why is mine different? But then you've also got the mums whose bodies did do that almost get shamed or they're embarrassed and they're insecure about the fact that they did because they feel like they're getting all of this shade from mums and they're scared to be proud of how their body looks because not everyone's did. So there's honestly so many different moving parts to that, which is where it's a big one where everyone is running their own postpartum race. It's fine to look for people for motivation, but with social media, if you're following any accounts that make you feel bad about yourself, unfollow. You want to be following accounts that inspire you, that motivate you, that make you feel good. One of my, I suppose, favorite accounts that I like to follow is Emily Skye. So like she, postpartum, she didn't just, sort of bounce back, but she's progressively worked really hard over the last, 3 years or so now. And she looks amazing, but she shared her journey every step of the way. And I think that is amazing. And I've tried to sort of, do similar. Like I don't just share photos where I look like I'm fitter than I am or I'm perfectly posed. Like I still have stretch marks. I still have loose skin and all of those sorts of things, which didn't just retract. So I try and be as authentic as I can, just in case there are mums out there following my social media. I don't want them to be comparing in a negative way. I want them to feel that, okay, I've got it too. And I don't hate my body. I still love my body. It birthed me 2 beautiful girls. Like I'm very grateful. And I'm just enjoying feeling healthy again. Because, everyone that's been pregnant towards the end, like your mobility is limited. For me, like I got a lot of pelvic girdle pain. Moving was painful. I don't think I've ever appreciated the ability to move as much as what I, did while I was pregnant. So I'm just enjoying being able to get up and down off the floor speedier at the moment. But yeah, I try and be transparent because I feel like if everyone was being transparent, it would remove a lot of the pressure and expectation that a lot of mums feel. I was initially a little bit nervous about doing it because working in the health and fitness space, as you know, a lot of clients sign up to people because they want to look like them as opposed to what skill sets they may or might have. So initially I was like, if I post and show that, I did gain all of this weight in my pregnancy, a client's going to stop coming to me because they're going to think that I don't know what I'm doing because, I didn't just bounce back. But it's actually been the opposite. My client demographic, I've had a lot of mums sign up because they feel like I get it and I can relate and they feel comfortable sharing these things with me, that I'm not going to judge and all that sort of thing. So didn't backfire, but it was definitely something that I ummed and ahed about initially. But yeah,
Yeah.
no regrets. So
Makes you way more relatable as well. And I think people they want to work with a human being that gets them, that
mm,
listens to them, that knows what it's like that can really empathize with them. And that's the benefit of being authentic. And showing your own struggles as a coach is really important.
mm,
I share like sometimes I just, I have yogurt and fruit for dinner because
mm.
that's just what I've got to do. Like it ticks the boxes, but and they go, oh fuck, can I do that as well? I'm like, yeah, of course you can. Like there's no rules. Like, but it
Yeah.
also goes to show like that one of the most overrated things, like knowledge is power. I was like, no,
Mm,
it's not like just knowing what to do won't get you across the line. Like
mm.
we are health professionals, but we are parents, and it's really, really hard still.
I sat there yesterday doing my check-ins whilst eating Domino's pizza because we got home late and I was like, look, we don't even have time, whatever. So
Yeah. Yeah. Again, real person. And like you said, it's probably boosted your business because people, they like, yeah, yeah, she gets it. She's not a robot at the end of the day or on the other side of the check-in.
yeah, yeah. No, I think that is it. And, there is definitely big benefit in working with a coach that's a parent when you're a parent because, yeah, they definitely do get it.
Yeah. Like I said, I think I said it to you at the start of the podcast, like I thought I was empathetic before. And then I became a parent. I'm like, fuck, I get it. Like I really do. Like there are some days when I just want to come home and have a beer. Like, it's been a hard day and I'm a health professional. I've still got like, I really feel like a beer. It's just been
Oh,
one,
I think
one of
about that
those
with wine.
days.
After a big parenting day, I'm like, how early is too early?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's
Yeah.
parenting's definitely hard for everybody. It certainly does not discriminate.
Yeah. You mentioned before breastfeeding as well. Now,
Mm,
one of the comments I've heard a couple of times from my wife's mother's group is the fear of stopping breastfeeding because, worried about weight gain afterwards because
mm.
it's such an energy expensive process, breastfeeding. Did you face a similar struggle? Have clients you've worked with face that challenge as well?
So, firstly, for some people, all of the hormones postpartum, even with breastfeeding, some people still they gain weight and not lose weight. So, yes, you're burning an extra, say, 400 calories from breastfeeding, but not everyone loses weight because of all of the hormones that change with it. So, I definitely wouldn't continue breastfeeding for weight loss motivations.
No.
You can go on a big walk and achieve the same amount of calorie burn as what you do breastfeeding. And it also gives you the freedom to, lean more into a calorie deficit to get weight loss results. Whereas, clients that I have that are breastfeeding, we have, different approaches to the extent of the deficit that, we're going to go into because we obviously don't want to impact milk supply. And having too much of a deficit can impact your supply because, whilst I've got very motivated clients that are very keen to lose weight, their breastfeeding journey is more important to them than weight loss, which is great. So, we have different approaches. So no,
Yeah.
I think, yeah, no, I don't think you should continue breastfeeding for weight loss because the benefit isn't actually as great as what you think it is.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't mean in a sense that they were doing it for that reason. It was like it was a fear of like, oh, when I stop this, I'm gonna be putting on weight.
Put on weight.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I personally did not notice any difference in my rate of losing weight when I stopped breastfeeding. If anything, I feel like I probably lost a little bit more weight when I stopped breastfeeding because, yeah, I had more freedom to create a bigger deficit if I wanted to, not to mention breastfeeding's hard work. It's mentally not, I mean, maybe not for everybody, but for me, I found it quite mentally draining. I don't like pumping. It's not really pleasant. I'm very grateful that I could breastfeed. I breastfed Callie for, a year. I didn't have any physiological issues with breastfeeding. So look, don't get me wrong. I am very grateful, but I definitely found it hard work. And for me, stopping was a mental load off. So I found it more beneficial when I stopped. I'm still breastfeeding at the moment with Chili, so I haven't really got a comparison to, whether I lost more or less weight postpartum, breastfeeding versus not breastfeeding. But in a big picture overall, I haven't found it's made much of a significant difference either way for me.
Yeah. You mentioned before as well, like reminding clients that, their breastfeeding journeys are more important than weight loss. Like, how do you go about that when someone comes to you, like they're on the 6 week, look, I'm ready, coach. I really want to go back into the weight loss journey.
Mm.
How do you have that conversation with them rather than just
So
saying,
I
like, rather than
initially
just
I
telling
just
them?
Well, initially I asked, not everyone is breastfeeding, wants to breastfeed, or can breastfeed. So I always find out if they are, purely because I need to know whether or not they're breastfeeding for when I'm working out what their nutrition should be. And if they are breastfeeding, I'll just say, do you have a goal? Is there a goal of how long you're wanting to breastfeed for? And if they say, like I'd love to breastfeed for 6 months or 12 months, then it comes into the education where I say, okay, cool. Well, I'm going to program, all of your nutrition around making sure we preserve your milk supply. We don't want to impact that. Are you happy with that? Is that what you would like to do? And they always say, oh yeah, absolutely. And I say, cool. So I want you to keep me in the loop in our check-ins if you notice any differences to your supply, because that's something that I need to know. So it's something then that we monitor. Because obviously, it might even just be, they're not drinking enough water because, you need to keep your fluids up as well when you're breastfeeding. So that's something then that we incorporate and monitor through our check-ins. But it comes down to what the client's goal is. They might say, look, you know what, I actually don't really care about breastfeeding. I just want to do it for, a couple of months through winter because, there's some antibodies in there. Cool. Okay. It's not a huge priority for you. Chances are I'm not going to be programming something for a new mum that's aggressive enough to impact their milk supply anyway. But it's good to know that that's not something, that they're wanting to really prioritize. So,
Yeah, it's good. You're
yeah,
really getting to know the client and making sure like you're prioritizing what's most important to them.
exactly. Because at the end of the day, like I'm a coach, but like it's their journey. So I'm just there to
Yeah.
facilitate them on it. So I just need to know what their goals are, what they would like to achieve, and then I know how I can best help them get there.
Yeah, that's it. Like they're the boss. We're just the guide.
Yeah, they're in the driver's seat. I'm just holding the nav man sort of thing. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So, there are a few of the challenges that clients face. What are some of the main tips, like your go-to tips for mums on their postpartum journey when they're I guess they're trying to get back into nutrition and training?
Be okay with hitting the reset button. So, you might be starting on Monday, you've spent the whole weekend meal prepping, like you're ready, you're motivated, you're keen to hit it. And then Sunday night or Monday, your kid gets really sick. There is nothing you couldn't have done to avoid that. As you've learned, like if they're sick, they're sick and they need you. It all kind of went to shit. It didn't matter how prepared you were. And then that's the moment where you don't just go, oh, well, I tried. That's where you're like, okay, that was a write off. We're going to hit the reset. We're going to start again. We're going to start again. I feel like getting into your journey, it's just constantly getting back on the horse, getting back on the horse. And, you might just be resetting for weeks, particularly through winter. Winter is a horrible time if you've got kids in daycare. They're just getting sick. You just do the best you can. And you just know that that's enough. And then you just try again the next day or the next week. I feel like there was 1 week where nearly all of my mum clients were like, this week was a write-off. We had RSV and then, they had COVID. I just didn't have a chance to get to the gym. And then one of the questions I ask my clients, is, what's a win that we can celebrate this week? And they'll be like, nothing. And I'm like, nope, you made it through to Sunday. That is your win. You got through the week. That is enough. We'll restart Monday. Like, that's all you can do, is just letting go of the things that are outside of your control.
Yeah, I really like that. And there's a really cool quote I like on about like what is high performance, and it's about doing your best with what you can where you're at.
Mm. Yeah,
And
exactly.
and circumstances, they really do matter.
Yeah,
Like where you
yeah.
are in this week, like this week, what could you have done? And if you did something like, I don't think there's anyone who's ever had a 0 out of 10 week. But even like
No, I agree.
no wins. Okay, so you had a 0 out of 10. Are you sure you didn't have a 1 out of 10? Like,
Yeah,
because if you even ate like just one piece of fruit this week, that's better than 0 pieces of fruit.
exactly. Exactly. And like, that's I guess one thing that I pride myself about with my coaching is clients say, I love that you always find a positive out of my week for me. I'm like, I do, because there is literally always one. Like, you were so right. There is always, something that, sure, maybe our week wasn't 100%, but you might have still gone out and had a walk, or gone for a bike ride with your kid, or, you still cooked the family dinner, or even you just didn't have a mental breakdown because you had the week
Yeah.
from hell and you mentally held it together. That is a win.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Like, you can always find a positive, and sometimes as the coach,
Always.
yeah, we have to highlight it for them. But then getting them into the practice, they're like, I want you to find the win this week.
Yeah.
Like, don't just rely on me to do it. Like, you actually be
Yeah.
honest. Like, was it really that bad?
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. So reset button. What else? What else do you have?
um, I feel like it's mainly just the like reset button and managing expectations, not expecting, okay, you've nailed it for 2 weeks. You know, you've just spent the last, say, 12 months being pregnant, initially postpartum. That's 12 months of your body changing. At least give yourself the same amount of time postpartum before you start, being a bit critical, I suppose. Like, give yourself time, be patient, because everyone wants, everyone, not even postpartum people, everyone wants results yesterday. Like, I get that, but really just give yourself time, set small, like, achievable goal milestones along the way. Don't just fixate on the one big goal. Do things that, you enjoy in the process. If you're someone that enjoys swimming, incorporate swimming. Make it as enjoyable as possible, because you're more likely to want to do it and get joy from doing it if it's something you enjoy. If you hate weight training, probably don't pick that as your postpartum. Benefits aside, if you don't enjoy it, pick ones that you enjoy.
Yeah.
And it's a double win if you can do ones that include your kids. Like, I lost so much of my postpartum weight with Callie purely just going for walks with her strapped to me. She was with me, she was sleeping, she was happy. It was something that I could pretty much always do because I didn't need anyone to look after her. So that was a very achievable one for me. It's walking if I had a terrible night's sleep. You also don't need to, be functioning at your best to do it. And it was achievable. And just starting there and ticking those off, or having a step count, is also another great one, because you can hit that running around after your kid, or cleaning the house, cooking dinner, whatever it may be. Like, we do dance parties while I'm cooking dinner. And if I need to get in steps, I'm dancing in the kitchen with the girls. I'm getting in steps. Cool. It's fun for them and it's achievable. So set realistic goals for yourself. That's what I'm going to cycle back on that big tangent. Set realistic goals.
Yeah. Again, like, realistic based on where you are with your life right now, and remembering that another human is basically dictating what you can do.
With competing, for example, like, everyone's like, oh, like, when are you going to compete? Thinking I was going to say, in the next 6 months, I might end of 2024 because I need time and I want to be able to do it, gradually and achievably. Like, I've seen competitors get on stage, compete in pro shows within 12 months of having a child. Amazing. Like, love that for them. Very impressive. For me personally, I would not enjoy that process. I would be stressed. I would feel too much pressure. I personally wouldn't be able to show up and be the kind of parent that I really wanted to be. And that was something that was a very high priority for me. It would have impacted my ability to breastfeed, which I did want to do for, X amount of period of time. So I set a goal that's achievable and enjoyable for me based on where I am now, taking into account what my priorities are, which is the same sort of thing that I do for clients is, okay, like, this is where you want to get, but what are your priorities in the interim? How can we, get there eventually in the most enjoyable way possible while still prioritizing the things that are important to you?
Yeah. So it's having a clear vision, but then that realistic and enjoyable path of how you're going to get there.
Yeah. Because life's too short to do things you hate doing. Like, let's be real.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And like you said, we go back to that motivation thing. If you really don't want to weight train, on the day that you can go to the gym and you're like, fuck, I just can't be bothered, I had a really poor night's sleep, like, you won't want to go. So scale it back to what you actually want to do.
Yeah. And if it's, carving out half an hour, be like, do you know what? I just want to go to the gym for half an hour and walk on the treadmill and watch my own TV show without a child talking to me. I'm not going to watch Coco Melon or Baby Shark.
take that time. Like,
Yeah.
Don't let your kids start Baby Shark. I have no words with how irritating that show is. But yeah.
I didn't even know it was a show. I was
It
going to
is.
ask you where your
It's like a
dance parties.
sequel show. Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
going
It's
to
like
ask
a
you where your
different kids.
dance parties based on Coco Melon, because Inca already at 8 months old likes Coco Melon. I've got like on
So
Spotify.
irritating.
On Spotify it must be my most played in the when the wrap up comes at the end of the year. I'm sure it'll be that and Ed Sheeran Eyes Closed.
Mine was all of the baby sleep music where it's like, you listened for this many thousand hours to baby sleep music because we just had it playing on the loop because both the girls have an iPhone in their room with Spotify just with like sleep music on like
Yeah.
yeah. Oh no, mine was it's like a full like yeah, it's like a play. I'll have to send it to you. It's like a playlist of like all this sleep music. But yeah, the girls actually really liked it. But yeah, easily my most played. But no, we're trying to put on like Animal Planet and those sorts of like
Cool.
educational doco kind of shows at the moment because Callie loves animals. She's also really obsessed with Steve Irwin, which is terrifying because she
Oh.
loves snakes. But so we're at least trying to do like educational docos. But
Yeah.
mm.
One thing I just reminded me of is like a thing I like to think about is like a habit has to be formed before it can be improved. So for a lot of people, like just get back into the habit of moving, get back into the habit of eating vegetables, get back into the habit of like, having 3 main meals per day. And then once those habits are formed, then focus on improving them, following a program, looking at the diversity with your veggies and your fruits. Like just get back into it first and then try and like, refine things as yeah.
And I have mums be like, oh, like, do I have to eat 6 meals a day because like I just don't have time? No, I don't. I eat 3 times a day because that's convenient for me. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, they're bigger meals. So you feel really full because I've got all the calories to work with only having the 3. But for me, that is most time effective, convenient. Best believe my lunch is something I can throw in the microwave that's ready in 7 minutes because I don't have time to go MasterChef and cook things up. Whatever. Like you definitely do things a little, compared to when you haven't got kids, you can just fry up your chicken and you've got all of the time and then you can sit down and let it cool and eat it. No, like things look very different. And, it's about adapting to your new lifestyle, your new environment, and just working with it, doing the best you can, starting small. And, as they're going to grow, as they grow, you get that little bit more back, and you can, build on those habits that you've formed. But yeah, just starting small initially and just building on them, I think is key.
Yeah. It's not like that. It's a new set of rules. Like you're doing these things on like sometimes less than 4 hours of sleep and you're 3 meals a day, but you've got no time. Like what can you eat cold? What can you eat really hot? Like, again, it's in refining things as you go. What's working? What's not working? Like I'm not getting to the gym because I hate it. Okay, change it. Like do something else. I don't have time for 5 meals a day. Okay, just have 3.
Yeah.
Or I don't have the appetite for 3 meals a day. Then have 5. Like
yeah. And like for me, like I am very lazy when it comes to cooking. Don't enjoy it. So for me, like I found slow cookers amazing. As a parent, throw it on in the morning early before the kids are awake. It cooks during the day. And then come dinner time when like it's that 5 o'clock time where shit's hitting the fan. It's already done. You don't have to do anything. You just serve up. Easy. And, if you're doing, a big crock pot, add it as a recipe in MyFitnessPal. You know how many serves. If you're sectioning it out, then, that might be lunch for the next day. Done. Like doing things like that are simple, or, ordering the Macro or Muscle Chef, whatever it is, like the frozen meals. Like that's all I do for lunch, and just add packet of steam fresh veg on top to bulk out the veggies. Microwave, done. Like you can do those things that are convenient, that save you time, because it's easier doing that than just being like, oh, well, I'll just grab the packet of Doritos that are open on the bench because I don't have time. So, if you are time poor, do things that, enable you to, I guess, save your energy for everything else.
yeah. And then like I like to think about like do things when you can be bothered for the times where you can't be bothered.
I love that. That's a great saying.
Thank you.
Yeah,
so like if you can prep something in advance for the times where you just can't be fucked. Like even training. Okay, I'm training now for the days where I can't be bothered training.
Yeah. I definitely like I use my calendar a lot. So for me, and so this is something that I tell clients as well, is I try and treat my training sessions like an appointment, and I put it in my calendar. I plan around it because it's an appointment. It's booked in the same way, you know, a hairdressing appointment, whatever, doctor's appointment. It's an appointment that I rock up, I go to regardless, no matter what else is, I try and do it that way. And then there's mornings where, you know, if Chili's woken up every hour and I'm so tired, I actually feel like vomiting, I'll be like, do I want to do this session, or is there a good chance tomorrow will be better and we can just move it to tomorrow? If yes, cool. If it's the other way around, where I've had a great night's sleep, but I wasn't actually planning on training today, I'll be like, do you know what? Seize the moment, go and train, because chances are if you have a terrible night tonight, you're going to wish you did it yesterday.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, really looking ahead at your schedule. I like the idea of the booking it in your calendar as well. And then go, oh, it's already booked in. I've got to do it.
Like, and that's something that I did pre-kids, is like, I used to be like, I was a lot better at being like non-negotiable, no matter what, it's an appointment. But, you know, there's that little bit more flexibility now because there's just things outside of, you know, my control, but being able to look at my week, see where I've got things in, because you know what it's like. Suddenly the day's gotten away from you. It's hectic. And then you've just run out of time, and you had the intention there, but because you didn't actually take the step from like intention to action, your ability to do it is gone. And am I going to go train at 9 o'clock at night? No fucking way.
No
way. So if I don't go in the morning, it just doesn't happen. So I try and allocate it in. And, you know, I also juggle it around when Tommy's got to leave for work. So he's here with the kids, because I try and go before they're up in the morning. I find that most effective, but
yeah, I was on that for a while when Inca was like consistently like waking up at 6, I'd like try and go in really early, or even try and do some work early in the morning, but then that's kind of gone out the window as well. One thing that's helped me for the sessions I actually do get to make is when I'm there making the most of it, and reminding myself, if I want to, like, let's say if I normally like get an hour 10 session in, if I've done like 50 minutes, I'm going like, oh fuck, could probably call it. Okay, no, like do this for the days where you can't go, because there's days where you can't go, where you go, fuck, I wish I was going to the gym today. But I was like, well, you're here, make the most of the time that you're here.
Yeah. Well, actually, there you go. That's another thing that I changed. My sessions are 45 minutes, and they feel so much like you go in, you get it done, you go.
Yeah.
And for me, like the gym that I go to is like 5 minutes from my house. I actually had to change gym when I had kids. It's not the gym that my heart wants to train at, but it's 5 minutes away. I don't have the bandwidth to travel half an hour each way to the gym that I want to go to, you know, particularly when they're younger and they are breastfeeding. If they wake and want to feed, Tommy's not much help. And up until yesterday, Chili didn't take a bottle at all. So you think they're asleep, and then it was like she knew I left the street and she used to just wake up, and I was like, why? So just being 5 minutes down the road also helped, I guess, with my initial anxiety of leaving them, because, you know, when you have your baby, you're kind of with them 24/7. I was kind of a bit nervous, I suppose, leaving them home, and knowing that I was only 5 minutes away, if something happened and I could just be home in a flash, that made me feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
I know a lot of the gyms have creches, but I used it a couple of times with Callie, but then I would find myself in between sets doing like walk-bys of the window and just like looking in at watching her, because I get very nervous at people I don't know looking after my kids. Like, I'm sure creche ladies are lovely, but for me, it makes me really nervous, and I don't really enjoy my session. I suppose my favorite thing about going to the gym is taking, you know, that 45 minutes where I'm not revolving my life around someone else. Like, those 45 minutes are for me to just block everything else out. And that's something that, you know, I had to tell Tommy is like, unless there's an emergency, don't call me, don't message me, don't, just let me have that 45 minutes. And then the rest of my day, whatever, the girls can have that. That's fine. But I just need that tiny bit to myself. And if they're in a crate 2 doors down, I'm not getting that 45 minutes. I might be getting the physical workout, but I'm not actually getting that mental break.
Yeah. And that, again, recharges your batteries for then the other
so much
23 hours and 15 minutes.
Oh, and look, because again, my girls aren't the best sleepers. Sometimes, you know, I am doing my sessions at 3:30 in the morning because they're waking really early. And on the days where, you know, I have got them both for the full day, and, you know, we do a lot of things, like we're hitting play groups, we're doing ballet, we're doing swimming. The mum's like, I don't know how you go to the gym before you do this day. But what they don't realize is going to the gym sets me up for the day. I'm in a better mood. I am calmer. I am more patient. I've got those endorphins. I've had that chance to reset. If I compare that to the days where from the moment I open my eyes, I have to parent and I don't even have time to have a cup of coffee before I'm jumping in that role, I find that harder. Like gym mentally prepares me for a full day of chaos. Like I find it better.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to what can help someone get over the line of going to the gym or going for a walk is thinking about the multiple wins you get from it. It's not just about getting stronger or not just about weight loss. It's now about like your mood is better. Like if you go for a walk, you got vitamin D, good for your bones, good for your muscle. Like think about how many benefits you get from behavior and go, fuck, this is a great ROI for my time. Like 45 minutes, look at all these benefits I get.
Yeah.
I'd be mad to say no.
I think I'm looking forward to, like, we're in the process of building a home gym at the moment, which cannot wait. Once that's there, I won't even need my gym membership. I can train when they sleep. No more 3 a.m. sessions. It's going to be amazing. But I'm so excited for them to watch me train, for them to grow up seeing me, lift, to eat, to fuel my body, and that be the message that they're given growing up. Like, or especially when they're an age where they can join me. Like I low-key hope they're into it. Maybe they won't be, but I think that will be really cool. Them seeing, I guess, activity and, strong women from such a young age. Like I'm so excited for that.
Yeah. Again, goes back to like what I was saying before about like, what do you want your children to see?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a positive relationship with exercise.
Yeah.
It's not an obsession either.
No. It's just, doing, or like, look, it doesn't even have to be lifting, like any sport. I think it's great, if you're, as a parent, even if you're doing, the social netball on a Thursday night, like whatever that looks like for you, keeping that, because A, it's you time, but B, like it's showing your kids that it's important to prioritize doing things that make you fit and healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool.
Even when it's hard.
Yeah. And then, making sometimes those tough decisions, like today, I don't really feel like it, but I know in the long run, I will thank myself for it.
And honestly, even in the short run, because anytime I skip a workout and convince myself, for whatever reason, not to go, I kick myself. I always have that regret and that guilt. I've never regretted a workout that I've shown up and done. Even if it's a shit session, I've never regretted going. You only regret the workouts that you skip.
Yeah.
And I tell myself that even in the moment where I'm like, I don't believe it, but it's so true. And then after you walk out, you're like, mic drop, showed up, did it, amazing. Let's get on with the day.
Yeah. I had the same thing a few weeks ago on a Saturday morning. I was like, fuck, one of those days, I just don't really want it. I was like, but you'll be mad if you don't go.
Yeah, you really do. And like, I think if you can get yourself into a routine where you do actually regret not going, that can be a motivator. I find that feeling motivating. So there you go. I said I wasn't motivated from that perspective, but I'm motivated to not feel the negatives of skipping it. So that definitely helps me show up.
Yeah. Like motivation is important. Like I think people, they talk shit on it like, oh, don't rely on motivation, but it actually is a pretty important thing because
especially to get started, but
but it falls on a spectrum as well.
Yeah.
Like there's controlling motivation. That's bad. Right. I have to, I need to, I must. Not good. Like if it's actually just part of who you are, that's a really good source of motivation.
Yeah, I think, look, motivation is great. You just don't want it to be the only thing that you hold on to show up for, but it's definitely a key ingredient to, particularly to getting started. So.
Yeah. So choose something that you really want to do. Focus on things you can do, be realistic, and be okay with pressing the reset button as many times as you need to.
Yeah, 100%. And, if you are working with a coach that doesn't take into account any of those things, find a different coach. Like having a coach can be the most knowledgeable coach in the world, but if they're not willing to program to tailor to you and do things that you can achieve and you enjoy, like no one wants to spend money trying to be forced to do something they don't like doing. Like there is a whole way, like that's the expression, right? There's a whole lot of way to skin a cat, but it's about finding the most effective, enjoyable way to do it. So yeah.
Not that we're endorsing skinning cats.
No, please don't.
Yeah, and that's it. Like just like make sure you work with a coach who takes the time to get to know you as well.
Yeah.
Like that's what, I pride myself on at FNC is like knowing our clients,
Mm.
knowing about their histories, their lives, like the things that are most important to them, and again, attaching like their goals to that importance.
Yeah. And I think that's where people probably need to keep in mind, like people that do coach that way are going to be more expensive than an app that's auto-generated that has no interaction with an actual person, and you just get programmed some generic thing that doesn't have a time for money overhead. So like I think a lot of people that maybe don't work in this space aren't really aware of that, because there are a lot of people that work purely based on apps, and you do just get generated plans. You don't actually check in and talk with a coach. Of course it's going to be a lot cheaper because it doesn't take, you're not taking up that one person's time working with you. But I don't know. I think working with a good coach, priceless. Like it's,
Yeah. And then you think about the return on investment for the rest of your life as well. Because my big thing is actually empowering clients so they can do things on their own. So yeah, we might be more expensive, when you're working with us, but if you don't have to work with a coach ever again,
sets you up for your life.
You actually save money.
Yeah.
Or if you learn how to do things and save money, not waste money on food or, dumb programs or supplements, like whatever it might be, like you are saving money by spending a bit more money in the short term.
Oh, don't even get me started on supplements. Some of the stacks out there, it's like, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I won't get supplements though, but
that's another podcast.
No, it is
in itself. Amanda, thanks so much for your time.
No,
today.
my pleasure.
Where can people find you if they're interested in either working with you or learning more about like the content you put out on social media for mums out there on their postpartum journey?
Yeah, so probably on our Instagram handle, so Astrophysiques on Instagram. Otherwise, Coach Amanda Jane is where I share a lot more of, I guess, my personal journey. Whereas the business page has a lot more, throwing facts out and client highlights. But either or, and if you're interested in coaching, happy to have a chat, see if we're a good fit. If we're not, that's fine. But yeah, I definitely like to have that initial chat because make sure that we are the right fit for each other. Because I think I like to work quite closely with clients. So finding a nice match is always key.
Awesome. And now probably the most serious question of the day. What is your favorite Coco Melon song?
Do you know what? I can tell you what my not favorite Coco Melon song was that I heard the other day. It was a Wheels on the Bus version, but they had the version in there where they said the singles on the bus go wink, wink, wink.
Oh.
And I was like, excuse me? What? Right? Yeah, right?
That's weird.
Yeah, very, very. So I'm just going to, I'm going to go with Wheels on the Bus. It's my least favorite. I do not have a favorite. I do not like any of them. It's like maybe washing hands. I mean, it's great encouraging them. Washing hands, especially when Callie's going through a phase at the moment of putting her hands in her nappy after she does an number 2, which is great. I'm told it's supposed to be a flag for toilet training, but we are certainly not sitting on a toilet yet. So we'll see.
Yeah.
The joys.
I know. If anyone doesn't know what Coco Melon is,
bless you.
When you become a parent, like you really will. Inca loves Wheels on the Bus, but haven't heard the version of the singles.
Yeah. I mean, it was on the Spotify one, so I don't know, rather than the TV show. But yeah, it was, I literally had to rewind it back and listen to it because I was like, no, like they did not just say that. Yeah.
Yeah. Five Little Monkeys is also in Inca's top 3, and she'll be coming around the mountain.
My daughter may or may not know the dance routine to Gangnam Style, so. What were we working on the other day? Oh, no. That Watch Me Whip, Watch Me Nay Nay. Yeah.
Yeah.
She started to learn that one too. Thankfully, she doesn't really understand the words yet. I probably need to start changing some of the things we play. But yeah, she's quite the dancer in the kitchen, Callie. It's hilarious.
Whilst I haven't watched Bluey before, I follow like the Bluey's mums and dads meme page.
Same.
And one of them is like, you don't know how bad the words to songs are until your children sing them in the car.
Yeah. I was like Barbie Girl. Barbie Girl's terrible. The lyrics are terrible. The message is terrible. And I'm just thinking, I remember loving that song as a child. Like,
Yeah, in year 5, yeah.
yeah, yeah. God. It's probably one of the first. No, I lie. Nikki Webster, I think, was the first single I ever got. I met her and she signed it for me, and yeah, it was amazing.
Very cool. Strawberry Kisses, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, she sung it at the football stadium when I did cheerleading there. Yeah,
classic. Again, Amanda, thank you so much. And hopefully people reach out to you if they are interested in some of your support. And yeah, hopefully we'll have a chat again soon.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Bye.